Check, check. Would you mind?
Hello, hello.
And I suppose it's only fitting, hello, world, to start with the cheers.
Check your hair.
Oh, what's wrong with it? Oh, it's okay. They know I came from somewhere.
Okay.
Cheers.
Yeah. Are we recording?
We're recording.
Good. Everybody, we actually have a rather historical day today, as it turns out. We just found out recently. You give the news.
Yeah, well, we were setting up for the show, and my friend texted me to tell me that after maybe 3 weeks of trial, Donald Trump has officially been convicted guilty of 35 counts. For the hush money trial.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he is officially convicted. Now we await an actual sentencing, but...
He is the first president convicted of anything, I believe.
American history.
Am I right? I think so.
He is.
Wow.
Historical day. It's a very, very significant moment to be alive for.
Just after last episode, we talked about politics.
I know. What the heck? Maybe we did it. Maybe it's ours.
I think so.
Yeah, right? We must have had something to do with it.
The jurors are always anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know who they were. They are sworn to become anonymous until the trial is over, and then they can speak if they wish to.
I don't think they should. They're going to get riots outside their house.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they do or they don't.
Yeah.
I know that one interesting thing that was known among their 12 jurors, and 2 of them were attorneys.
Whoa.
And it's not so often that an attorney even is accepted onto a jury.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, 2.
Wow.
I would guess men, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, it happened. So it's also the first time, maybe ever, that I've come in the evening as opposed to...
That's right.
As opposed to the morning.
We're having evening service today.
Yeah. Evening service. We usually drink lemonade, but today we're drinking rosé.
Yeah.
Celebratory.
Well, Mickey brought wine today, so we're and quite appropriate.
Yeah. So what are we talking about today, Stanley?
Well, we're actually talking about laziness. That was my idea. So, of course, I looked it up in the dictionary. It's a resistance to work, and I think it would be sort of fun to talk about how lazy you ever have been or are, although I don't think you are, and same for me, and if there's anything good about being lazy.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely been very lazy in my life. I don't know if I'm wildly lazy today, or, of late, but I think I find myself feeling lazy oftentimes, or like unmotivated. Like even yesterday, for example, I felt, there were a lot of things that I wanted to do, creative things, pursuits that are my own, that I want to use my time to build something bigger for myself, whether it be my life coaching career, or whether it be my art career, or whether it be acting, or any of the things that I'm interested in doing. But yesterday I just stared at my computer for like 2 or 3 hours wanting to do one of those things, and then I ended up doing none of them. And I think...
Then how did you feel at that point?
I felt bad. I felt like unmotivated and lazy, which was okay. I mean, today I woke up and decided, like, you know what? I'm glad I took that day to just... Because I just got back from a 5-day vacation. But a 5-day vacation sounds like you're doing nothing, but you're really not. Like, you're indulging in fun. I was with, 4 of my best friends. So, like, we're doing fun every day. So it's not work, but it's exhausting.
Sounds like it sounds like fun to me.
Yo, it was awesome,
So
but
I don't agree.
getting back from a vacation like that, I needed a day. Even though I wasn't working, I needed a day just to do nothing by myself. And I'm convincing myself of that today. Yesterday I didn't. I wish I had done something. I felt really bad about it. But today I'm like, you know what? I worked from 7 a.m. until now.
Yeah,
So,
and we're not finished.
and we're not finished. So I still feel like I needed yesterday to just do nothing.
I forgive. I forgive.
I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Have you when have you felt the laziest in your life?
I have become lazy in my older years. I was not lazy. Well, there were times, but not a lot. I didn't in school. I was lazy enough that I didn't, strive to get an A in every subject. But that's because I was spending time on politics. We talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
That was where I was not lazy at all. I loved that. But I think, I don't know, there were a lot of years when I worked, a lot of years. And I've written a fair amount since I stopped working. So I don't think that I should feel bad about being a little lazy. And ironically, this week I actually went back to the computer and have done some writing,
Yeah.
which I have not been doing much of.
That's not lazy.
No, that's right. It's not lazy.
What spawned the impulse to start writing?
I went out a couple of days ago with Zach, one of my friends, and he's a doer. We went to Central Park. It was beautiful, just beautiful. We went by the little lake where the toy sailboats are.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I love that area. And bought some lunch there. And we talked about stuff and a little bit about my writing. He has written some. He does a lot of other stuff too. And I don't know, it just sort of instigated me to come back and do some work. Well, I don't know. I think part of the impetus for what I would be, what I will be doing, am trying to do, is on the matter of remembering. Because memory is something that becomes more elusive as one gets older. There's no question about that. One of the examples, and I mention it in this thing that I'm trying to write, and I mention it to Zach, there was a play years ago called Compulsion. And it was the story of the Leopold and Loeb murder case from about 50, 60 years ago in Chicago. Two rich Jewish boys, college boys, who were very brilliant and odd, decided that together they would kill a young boy.
Oh.
And they went out searching for one, and they found one. I forget his name now. Also from a wealthy family. The boy was coming out of school in the afternoon, and they grabbed him, and they killed him. And it became this notorious case.
Wow.
Known by the words of Leopold and Loeb. Those were the names of the assassins.
Yeah, yeah.
Recently, that was brought up again in the news because the CBS program, which I love, on Sunday morning, called Sunday Morning, had a long segment on this. And I can't remember why they brought it up again, but they did. and it reminded me of this. The relationship to me, if there is one, that play was on Broadway in the middle to late 50s. And that was exactly when I moved to New York, and I went to see that play. And I instantly developed a crush on one of the two young guys who was one of the murderers. Name was Dean Stockwell. And we were about the same age, and I got this instant crush on him. So, having watched the program on Sunday, put this whole story, and it was a very famous, infamous story back then, came back into my mind, and then I remembered the play, and then I remembered him, and guess what? I couldn't remember his name. I absolutely could not remember his name. I remember the name of the other boy, who was the assassin. Roddy McDowell played him in the play. Couldn't think of Dean Stockwell's name, and it drove me mad because I had this terrible crush on him, and I simply could not remember his name. And so, and to not go absolutely nuts, of course, what did I do? I went on to Google, and I went back to Compulsion. I hardly even remember the name of the play, and then I found his name, and then of course I looked him up again. What happened to him since then? Well, he had a couple of marriages, and he had a pretty good career in the theater, and since then he's died. But what is interesting to me, and what I'm thinking of trying to do a little, maybe not a little, when writing, is to delve into the question of remembering.
I like that. I feel like memory is we've talked about this before, and maybe it's a little off subject, but I'll say it really quick, and we can go back to laziness if we want. But I do feel like whether or not you believe in a soul, or some sort of core essence of your personhood, I think if there's anything that makes you you, it's this compilation of experiences that you've collected in your mind. And as you get older and some of them start to fall away, it does feel a bit like losing pieces of yourself when you can't remember. And I imagine that you experience it a lot more because so many of your friends have gotten older and lost their memory, whereas you're pretty sharp still, which is
well, yes and no. I mean, what's interesting, I find, stepping away a little bit, is that the things that I have trouble remembering are invariably nouns. They are names. I could name you the color of the shirt that I wore, but I might not be able to remember the brand name.
Interesting.
And further odd is that often the names that I have trouble remembering are well-known names. Very often people in the entertainment world. Cynthia Nixon. I had a hard time with her lately. And she's great. I know perfectly well her name.
Yeah.
Couldn't think of it. Couldn't think of it.
When you close your eyes, can you actually do it for me really quick? If you close your eyes and you think of your mother's face, can you see it clearly?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. I don't know if this is, sometimes I feel like I can and sometimes I can't, because I can close my eyes and try and think of my mother's face, and I only see pieces of it, at a time. I don't see her whole face. I only see, I can, focus on her hair, or I could focus on her eyes.
That's
but everything else is, fuzzy and dark.
I wonder why. I have no idea.
Yeah, I think some people don't have, as visual of a memory. You know, like when their mind's eye. Some people don't really have a mind's eye. Like they can't see imagery inside their own head. They can hear it or they can feel it. Like I find myself, if I think of a memory, much more so than remembering the color of the wallpaper or, you know, the food that I ordered at the restaurant or whatever, I'll remember like a feeling, or I'll remember something that was said, or something way more than I'll remember anything visual.
I have trouble sometimes, not sometimes, a lot of the time, remembering if I've been with someone, remembering what he wore. Was it a t-shirt? Was it a pullover? Was it short sleeve? Was it black? Was it red? Was it yellow?
Yeah.
Was it white? And I'm not good at that. Sometimes I will make myself look so that I will remember when the meeting is over.
Yeah.
To try to remember what was that person wearing, you know. And I think one should do that.
Yeah.
I think so.
Huh. Why is that?
Because it's part of who the person is.
That's interesting.
Or was at that point.
Yeah. Because I think for me, like, we are so off the topic of laziness, but I'm interested in this. But for me, I think that maybe it's just like an ADHD thing. I have poor attention skills with extraneous things. But it's not that I can't remember it. It's that when it was happening, I never noticed it. You know? Like, until you said that, I never would have known that you were wearing a black long sleeve shirt right now. Until you mentioned clothing and I looked. But it's very possible that next week you could ask me offhand what color shirt you wore last week, and I would have no idea.
Well, no reason why you would.
Well, yeah, that's true.
I mean, can you remember what you had for dinner last night?
Yes, but only because I cooked it with Sarah. And I remember the cooking of it. But I think, let me try. I had chicken. I cooked chicken, air fried, and we made mushrooms, and we put it over a bed of greens with like a cilantro avocado dressing.
My goodness, that's a nice dinner.
Very good. It was very, very good.
Yeah.
And I had a beer.
Very nice.
Yeah, some random Pilsner.
Do you ever question yourself
As to what it is
to remember what you had last night or the night before?
No, not until I'm put on the spot. Like I have a bad habit with memory, where I will tell someone something, and they'll say, "Mickey, you just told me that like an hour ago or yesterday," and I'll think, "Oh, I didn't know that I said it out loud an hour ago." Like I remember, I thought it, but I guess I said it.
Yeah.
Or I'll tell someone a story and I'll be like, "Oh, I was just telling my friend this, and they said this," and they'll be like, "That was me. I'm the one who said that. That was a conversation between us." I'm like, "Oh, I couldn't remember who it was I was talking to."
No, I
do that all the time.
I think that happens.
Yeah,
that happens. Yeah.
Yeah, that happens to me all the time.
It may happen more as you get older.
Yeah. Do you ever think about the how every time you remember something, so let's say, you know, I just asked you to remember your mom. You're not remembering your mom. You're remembering the last time you remembered her face, you know? Or like more specifically like an event that happens. Like if you remember where you were when you saw that play. With, what was his name?
Dean Stockwell.
Dean Stockwell. Remembering the experience of seeing Dean Stockwell. Every time you remember it, you're not remembering the original experience. You're remembering the last time you remembered it.
Sure, of course.
And every time it's just a little bit less, attached to the original moment.
Well, what I've gotten to in what I'm writing on the matter of remembering is the time when my brother got ill and that whole period of time. those memories are 60 years ago, but a lot of them are very fresh.
Like as though it was a week ago.
Well, I think it's because the period was so it was so profound. It was so traumatic. It was so it was such a bomb that, unlike anything in my life, that period has been. I have lost other family members, but nothing was the equivalent of that period because he was young.
Yeah.
And it was so utterly unexpected. You know, if the person is old, that's different. But he died at 38. It's very young. And it was very sudden. And those, there are moments from that period, and the period was maybe 9 months or so, that are vivid in my mind.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know that my dad, when he will tell me stories of his childhood with so much detail. Like he remembers it so clearly. And all of the moments that he remembers so clearly are moments from before his mom died. So he was 8 years old or younger. And he tells these stories like they happened yesterday. And then there's this period of about 2 years, I think, from 8 to 10, that he like doesn't remember at all after his mom died. Like there was these 2 years before he went to boarding school that he just doesn't remember at all. Vague moments maybe of like, oh, I know I went to this school at that time. I know I lived with my grandfather or my whatever, but like he doesn't remember anything from it. And I think it's almost like this traumatic blur for him for after losing his mom, that he just blocked out like this whole 2 years before so much of his life changed when he went to boarding school that it almost felt like a new, it's like he could process it again. And maybe that's something with children. But I imagine as an adult too, you either respond the way that you did, where everything's so vivid and so profound, the experience, or you block it out completely.
Yeah.
You know? But back to being lazy.
Well, I think there is some kind of a connection, whether in being lazy you don't bother to remember.
Yeah.
It's
Well, being
part of
lazy
being
with
lazy.
your memory, you know.
Yeah.
I think that memory, like anything else, is a muscle you can work on. Like there's brain teaser games and there's things that you can do to work on your memory
No
to
question.
enhance it.
No question.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't, you know, especially today, you know, where everyone's attention span is so short from social media and from all these things. I think today people's memories have just plummeted, you know.
And yet, you know this game in the newspaper called Wordle?
Yeah.
My friend Steve, who I also saw this week, he is an addict for Wordle. And anytime I see, how many times did it take you? How many guesses? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. And he will give me every detail of what was guess number 1, what was guess number 2, guess number 3. And he has created a long list of 5-letter words, which is what Wordle requires.
Yeah.
5-letter words, 5-letter words that he thinks are good openers. You have to have an opener.
It's like playing chess.
Well, yeah. And this game is world popular.
Yeah.
World popular. There are millions of people.
There's
who
an app
play it.
for it too. You can play Wordle against other people.
Really.
Yeah.
And he says, "Don't you want?" No, absolutely, I do not want to play. Because I know me. If I start that,
you won't write anymore. You'll just be
you
doing
know,
that
I'll
all
spend
day.
the whole day on it.
Oh, I do that with games all the time. My dad, again, talking about my dad so much today, but when he plays golf, because he plays a lot of golf, that's something where like golf is 18 holes, and it's
a long time.
At least 3 to 5 shots a hole.
Yeah,
so you're talking like a lot of shots on an expanse of land. And if you ask him, like, how did you do on the 12th hole? He'll be like, oh, well, I started with this shot, and it landed just right of this tree on the side of the fairway, and it was underneath some brush, so I took this club, and I popped it, chipped it out to the left and back onto and he remembers every single shot he took on every game that he plays so vividly, and he'll go back and tell you every step he took, no matter, like, it's crazy. And to me,
that is crazy.
Oh, I can't even remember how many shots I took on the last hole, and he can remember how many shots he took on the 12th hole last week.
I watch that sometimes on the news, the big tournaments, and generally it's at the end when they're about to wrap up, and then they will wrap up, and then the one who is winning, they will interview him. And he does the same thing.
He'll go through every specific shot.
How did you feel when you went to hole number 13? Well, I'll tell you, it was...
Yeah.
And I think he remembers every aspect of that.
Yeah, because the focus. He's so focused on it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's wild.
That's not being lazy.
No, that takes a lot of practice. I will say on the laziness thing, because we're coming up on time. But I do often find myself in like this weird crossroads where I'm an avid consumer of information. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of news. I read less than I would like, but I listen to audiobooks. And I'm constantly like consuming information. I'm just constantly taking it in. And I convince myself it's very valuable, and it's very educational, and I'm growing and I'm learning from these things. But I think that there must be a point where now you're wasting time. Like, now you're lazy. Because at what point do I make the decision to stop consuming someone else's information and start producing my own? Whether it be through art or through this or through whatever. And I convince myself I'm being productive because I'm listening to a podcast or I'm listening to an audiobook. But if you listen to 8 hours of audiobook a day, when are you writing? When are you making something that someone else can consume? And I find myself stuck in that crossroads all the time where I'm convinced that I'm consuming more than I'm producing. And that is in some way what I would call lazy for me. Is that I'm lazy in my production and gluttonous in my consumption.
There are worse things.
There are worse things. That's true. It's true.
No, I think of you as being a very well-informed person, because that has come up any number of times in what we've done.
Yeah.
And it surprises me sometimes to think, God, that guy really knows a lot about a lot of stuff.
And I feel like I know a little about a lot of stuff. But yeah, thank you. I spend a lot of time listening to other people talk about things.
Yeah.
And then every once in a while, I talk about things, or you talk about things. But Stanley, we are coming up on 30 minutes. So do you have any final thoughts on laziness?
Well, my final thought is that I'm really glad that we have met on a day that really is historic.
Yeah.
And when we finish this, I'm going to turn on the news and find out what other bits of news there is. But it's important.
Yeah.
It's important for the country, for us to know about it. Yeah.
Speaking of memory, as you said, like, it's cool to know that I will remember where I was and what I was doing.
To be sure.
If and when this ever comes up.
I know where I was when I heard of John Kennedy's
assassination.
When the bullet flew.
Yeah.
I know exactly. I was in a cab going back to work.
Heard it on the radio?
On the cab's radio, yeah.
Oh.
And look how long, well, that's as long ago as my brother.
Yeah.
Same year, 1963.
Wow. Yeah, and now you were here for the first convicted president of his American history.
It's a, well, I shouldn't say it's a happy day, but it is a happy day, frankly.
Yeah.
All right.
It's an interesting. It's definitely a memorable day, to say the least. All right.
Goodbye for now.
Bye, everybody.